This is the new F'n Show Jerry Lynn, and you're listening to another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast!
Woo, woo, woo! The cream of the crop! Nobody does it better.
They make sure you ain't booty!
The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be!
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
Oh my God!
We are taking over.
Drink it in, man.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. And if you're not down with that, then he's got 2 words for you.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only 2 in my book.
AWB, another wrestling podcast. Bada boom, realest guys in the room. How you doing?
Man, I got this phone call at 3:45 this morning. Do you know who called me?
No, who the fuck is this?
Nigeria called me. Dude, I wake up at 3:45 and I hear my phone vibrating and I go to look at it and I'm like half asleep and I'm like, my wife's asking, who's calling you right now? And I'm like, Nigeria. Nigeria's, because it said Nigeria. It said the location it's calling, and I'm like, who the hell do I know in Nigeria? Why? Who the hell has my phone number in Nigeria, let alone calling me at 3:45 in the morning? And I'm like, the closest thing I know to anything in Nigeria would probably be Samba Simba, if anything.
Oh, Jesus. Maybe Kamala. Who the hell knows?
I mean...
Oh, no, that's Uganda. My bad. I mean, I get my African states all messed up.
But seriously, Nigeria? Like, come on. All right. Anyway, forget about Nigeria. Welcome to another wrestling podcast. This is episode 143. I'm Credo.
And I'm Angry Cooter.
Each and every week, we are here to show you we're more than just a podcast.
We're the whole fucking show.
That's right. And joining us today is the new F'n Show, Jerry Lynn.
I love Jerry Lynn. When he came on the scene in ECW... and he had these classic matches with Rob Van Dam, one of which we saw in the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York, our hometown. Just blew my mind, Credo.
Yeah, man. You know, guys, gals, everybody listening, if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, listen up, because Jerry Lynn is also going to be putting on a pro wrestling seminar. It's going to be $30 a person. The best in class that night will be in a match for Fight for the Mind 2, happening down in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Reserve your spot now. Head on over to iyfwrestling.com/FFTM for more information. We'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, but Jerry's going to be with us today before the event next week, so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. But Cooter, man, it's been a crazy week in wrestling, as always, so let's get right into the week that was. Right off the top, what a week. We found out that Kurt Angle is headed to the WWE Hall of Fame, and hey, we weren't even surprised because we had to get it put on social media for everybody to see beforehand. I mean, man, I'm sick of the lack of surprises this day and age, because, you know, back in the day, you put on TV, this happens. Could you imagine the pop, just even for you sitting at home knowing that Kurt Angle's going to the Hall of Fame instead of getting like a tweet or somebody to ruin it that he's going in? I mean, hey, I love that he's going in, but at the same time, stop ruining these surprises, man.
I don't know. I mean, I think the news broke on ESPN earlier, before it even hit social media. So, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, is that maybe something that is ESPN worthy? I mean, in my mind it is, don't you think?
Well, definitely. I'm missing the old days of turning the TV on and then you actually hearing that for the first time. No internet, no iPhones, none of that, to where it was an authentic surprise. But I get it today that they have to hype it up and get everybody to tune in. So it's more of an advertisement to tune in to see what all the information's about. But I mean, hey.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do miss the surprises, but I think they're just trying to work that relationship with ESPN where they give them some sort of exclusive. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad deal, but I mean, at the end of the day, I agree with you, man. I do miss those surprises when you're like, oh shit, really? And you jump out of your chair and you're like, yes.
Man, WWE has has definitely been surprising us, at least each year. I mean, the headliners we've had from Sting to Warrior, they've been great. It's a shame that we really, didn't get the Macho Man in time before he died. But, there's a list of names. I think we're going to have a Hall of Fame show to talk about the guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame yet. And, but either way, Kurt Angle, man, going in. That's going to be great. Now, Cooter, the UK tournament, man. Did you watch this? It was a 2-day tournament last weekend.
Yes, I watched back to back. I missed it on Saturday, and I pretty much caught up on the first episode right before the second one started. So, I mean, I was maybe a half hour behind everybody else, but that was just incredible. It was nice to not really know anybody in that tournament for me. I mean, outside of Trent Seven. I don't want to be one of those guys who starts talking about guys and had no idea who the fuck they were. So it was just going to be interesting to me to see who the fuck, what these guys were capable of, because I had no idea who they were. And that's rare, because we tend as American wrestling fans really to watch things that we're really familiar with, especially with people we're familiar with. It's tough for us to give something different a chance. So if you put the WWE's name on there, I had to tune in, and man, that did not disappoint whatsoever.
I do want to play devil's advocate. I don't want to, frown on everything, but hear me out. Going into this, we heard that it was going to be the United Kingdom tournament for the United Kingdom Championship. I was kind of expecting a little bit of how the Cruiserweight Classic was set up like that. It was definitely a lot less show and more wrestling. To the fact that, they didn't have the big setup like they did down in Florida. It's overseas. I was expecting the showmanship of it to be a little bit better, but I don't know. I think I was kind of comparing it to the Cruiserweight Classic a little bit, and how that was played out to how this was played out. But yeah, going into it, not knowing anybody, to me, it's like, I don't know how these guys were to anybody else overseas. To me, it almost looked like WWE Bizarro Land, to where it's like it's WWE wrestling, but not with the WWE wrestlers. So it was definitely different to see. I think the first night probably wasn't as good as the second night. The second night definitely had all the bells and whistles, if you will.
Yes.
It was definitely different, and I can't wait for more of these kind of tournaments. I'm kind of curious what they're going to do actually now that the tournament's over, and what kind of show they're going to get and when it's going to start and all that stuff.
Credo, I'm telling you, I couldn't agree more. That first night, I want to say like the first half was pretty slow for me after the opening match, because I am a little familiar with Trent Seven. So, that did get me pumped, and I'm glad they opened with that. But some of those first rounders were but, they did real good at the end of the show with
definitely
character development, like a friend of mine said, and we basically had a little bit of a storyline going into the second day, especially with Pete Dunne just going ballistic on his next opponent and just beating the shit out of him, to the point where Regal is pulling him off. You're going to ruin this tournament. Like it was well done. It wasn't overdone.
No, for sure. And I'll admit, honestly, the first show I kind of fell asleep, but I was actually tired too. But I still fell asleep during it. Well, it wasn't just because it put me to sleep, but I was actually tired too. But yeah, man, I think incorporating that angle at the end of the show to where it was like, where he pushed him and they started the whole fight, and they showed the whole video of him walking backstage, and Triple H confronts him, William Regal confronts him. It was great. They definitely made you want to tune in to day number 2. So at the end of the day, though, it's really cool. I'm excited. I'm kind of wondering if they'll even have like a UK Championship match at WrestleMania. Not at every pay-per-view, obviously, because it's overseas, but just the big show. WrestleMania. You think they'll have like the UK Championship match, or will everybody not relate to it and just not care about it?
It depends on how fast they get the show set up. If we get a couple of shows in, because I think it's supposed to be like another weekly show, I could see them, bringing these guys over just for a championship match. I think it's important to represent everybody that you have underneath your banner at your biggest show of the year. So I think that needs to happen, and you know what? Even if they don't, I wouldn't mind seeing, a rematch between Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, because, the story they told in the finals was incredible. It really was. And dude, Tyler Bate is only 19 years old.
Yeah.
That's just incredible performance from somebody so young. At the age of 19 to be as good as you are, not just in the ring, but his character that he just played, just incredible. He worked that crowd to perfection.
No, definitely. And it's like you said, too, we didn't really know these guys, so it's not like we can judge too many of these guys because, we haven't been watching them for years. We literally just watched them for a few hours on 2 nights. So it intrigues me more to find out more about these guys and watch them now that we've seen what they can do in a way. So it was definitely fun. And hey, even if they don't use them on WrestleMania, maybe when they go overseas and do like Raws or SmackDowns, having them be a part of that show, I think that'll be definitely worth it,
Anybody else from that tournament you really want to get a second look at?
The first match that you said, the guy with the beard, man. What was his name?
Trent Seven?
Trent, yeah. Just the way he talks and the way he acts, I think he's cool. I don't know. I think he stood out really good. There was a few others, but man, I forget their names. It's
the one guy.
I saw him one night and I forgot already.
Pete Dunne in I think it was the semifinals. Mark Andrews.
Yes.
He basically looked like a cruiserweight, but the stuff he was doing was just incredible too. I am pumped. Just the 4 guys that I've connected with in this tournament alone, and I'm sure there's plenty more to come. There's a lot of talent overseas that us Americans are just not aware of, and I hope we get exposed to it.
Yeah, and it's incredible what WWE is doing from last year to this year, man. From the cruiserweights to this UK tournament. Now even Triple H said that probably the summer will be the women's tournament. The sky is the limit now with WWE. A few years ago, it was like they only worked within their talent. You had to go through WWE's door. You had to go start down in NXT and Florida Championship Wrestling and work your way up. Now it's like, man, all these doors are open bigger than they've ever been open. So it's really exciting to be a fan, especially for the WWE now, because they just know, man, they're opening up every which door to anything now. So it's exciting regardless.
All right, let's talk about the club, Credo.
Oh, man,
basically winning the tag team champions from Cesaro and Sheamus. But we get a referee with a need to change his tampon, basically. Oh, Sheamus kicked me in the face. So they get the DQ when basically the club got a clean win over Cesaro and Sheamus for the belts.
Yeah, man, and it was quick, so I'm like, all right, what are you guys doing? Are you testing the waters? Have they paid their dues yet? I was so happy when they won it, and I was like, all right, finally. And then they're going to do that and turn the decision over right away. I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch.
You know what? Is that a match you definitely want to see again anyway? So, I really don't have a problem with them extending this rivalry. And even if the club doesn't win those belts, they're destined to do it eventually, because I think they're starting to have a little bit of faith in this team.
Yeah, and whether it's like they're paying their dues since they came over here, but still, man, I think they should have won it a long time ago. They're probably the best tag team on the Raw brand that they have, or one of the best tag teams that they have on the Raw brand at least. Just from their popularity over in Japan, coming over here, I wish they wouldn't have faltered on that and kind of kept that momentum going. But it is what it is, and I really want to see them pushed again to where they need to be. And like I said, I personally hate guys being thrown together for tag teams like Sheamus and Cesaro. I got it when they had the whole best of 7 series, and then that happened and whatever. I get it, but at the same time, man, you have like these established tag teams. Stop trying to recreate the tag teams for no reason, and just have the guys who are tag teams be tag team champions. And if I'm hoping maybe they get a rematch at the Rumble. It's going to be a big, long show, so hopefully they could win it at the Rumble. If not, maybe the night after the Rumble. If not, at WrestleMania, baby, I'd be happy within those few chances for the club to win the belts back. So I don't know. I hope they just. The only thing I don't want to happen is if they win it now and then they lose it at WrestleMania or something. I really want them to get a good run with it, but that's all.
There's 2 things I want to say about this. I tend to agree with you with them throwing teams together. I think what they did with Sheamus and Cesaro is actually working, because they did have that nice storyline behind it. And it's been like this gradual, they're finally starting to get along after basically beating the shit out of each other and become the champs. This is the one time where I'm not annoyed by it. And 2, in terms of the club, you want to talk about paying dues. You're talking about two guys that came over from Japan and got forced to do some of the stupidest shit ever on television. Hence the old day gimmick. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then there was, when they were doctors.
Yep.
I mean, that was funny at first, like the first time they did it. But, then they tried to make them do it, I think it was maybe a week or two afterwards, too. And I'm just like, all right. It was fun. It's one of those things that was funny one time.
Exactly. It's a good one-off thing, but don't keep them having – like, they don't need a character like that. You know what I mean? There's other guys that can be funny and silly like that. You need these guys to be just badasses, man, and just coming in, beating people up, and winning. Like, they don't need to do something silly or, ride a tricycle around the ring or jump on it. You know what I mean? Like, stop. We get that the E is entertainment, but we don't have to be so stupid about it. You know what I mean? Like, we get it. Just let them be who they are and what they've been, especially with their popularity in Japan. Like, we saw what they could do. Let them do it.
Exactly.
But, there's been a lot of returns this week. One return I want to most notably say is Jerry Lawler returned to SmackDown, but he returned with the King's Court on SmackDown, something we haven't seen in years. I thought they were done with Jerry Lawler, man. They put him on the pre-show, and then they canceled the pre-show, and then he was like just twiddling his thumbs. He had nothing to do, and now all of a sudden they bring him back, using him in this Dolph Ziggler little storyline going on. But what are your thoughts? I mean, is it a risk to put Jerry Lawler on TV, or do they just want to use him, right? I mean,
he's getting to the point where he's getting hired and fired as many times as Jim Ross. Okay, that's one. Two, I rather enjoyed him on SmackDown stirring the shit. A lot of these so-called talk shows, they're just not.
There's too many.
They're not working for me. Yeah. I mean, we have the Ambrose Asylum, we have Miz TV, we have the Jericho one. There's probably another one on Raw that I can't mention. But I mean, we talked about this last week with Beefcake.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the barbershop, we had Piper's Pit, and then even Jake, we had the Snake Pit. I
think we even forgot to talk about the King's Court, but that's it was,
that wasn't. Yeah, I mean, God, there's the funeral parlor, but they all had classic moments that I will forever remember from my childhood. There is not something that I can remember from last week from the Ambrose Asylum.
Yep.
There's nothing that's or Miz TV. Jerry Lawler did it, and he did it really good. So I have to give him his props. But for him to get physical, I don't know how good of an idea that was. I mean, he's still wrestling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we really can't say shit, but at the same time,
when you have a heart attack, you're really upped your liability of doing stuff on live TV. So, but I think it's really good to have him as a, using him, because he's popular. Everybody knows who Jerry Lawler is, but I think it's perfect for him to have a talk show to where, like, Ambrose Asylum, I don't think he needs a talk show. Just do what he does. He doesn't need to have a little gimmick talk show. A few guys I can understand having
and he's not good at it, Credo. Let's be honest.
Ambrose, right?
No, Ambrose isn't good at it. I really don't even think Miz is good at it. I mean, he has flashes of greatness, but they use their talk shows to pretty much further their storylines. Yeah. I want an outside party,
exactly
like a Jerry Lawler, to get in between two guys and stir the shit. That's why I loved it when you'd have Piper's Pit and he would just fucking do what he did and basically stir the shit. And he's not involved in the storylines that he would be stirring the shit in. And now it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, and it's good to use him like this. I mean, he's a legend. It's a talk show. He doesn't have to wrestle. He doesn't have to put his own storyline over or whatever. And I think it's a perfect fit for him. So I'm kind of wondering what this is really leading to. Is it really going to lead to King's Court every week or every other week or whatever, or is it leading to something else? Because in the rumblings in the news, we have Michael Cole is going to be off commentary soon, and he's going to be doing either something backstage or whatnot. But he's going to be coming off of commentary. And what they also announced is that Jerry Lawler is also going to be calling the Royal Rumble this year, part of the Rumble team. So he's back calling
the whole card, or maybe just the match.
They haven't really specified, but I mean, I'm sure it'll be good parts of it. Maybe they'll switch for each Raw and SmackDown match, but they said he's going to be on the commentary team for that. So he's calling that, and once again, that is one of the big pay-per-views. So maybe it's just the one-off as that he'll just do the big pay-per-views, maybe. But still, they brought him back, man. He's not gone. He's not kicked to the curb.
You know what? I think they put him on King's Court because it was in Memphis this week.
True, that's true. So
and then two, I think it's a smart move to just have him call a Rumble match because, it is he's not on a brand.
Yeah.
So you don't have to mix up the teams. And him and Cole have worked together. So I mean, he's not brand exclusive. So he can be that impartial commentator who could just do what he does best.
That's right. Well, regardless, we'll see what happens with that. But there's also another return. My favorite, Mickie James, has returned to SmackDown. They revealed her to be La Luchadora, even though a few other girls have played that part. They used that to reintroduce Mickie James to the SmackDown brand. We saw her a few months ago on NXT going against Asuka, where she lost in the match for the NXT Women's Championship, but they signed her on a new deal, and she's part of SmackDown now. Was this a good move, bad move to reveal her like this? What are your thoughts on seeing Mickie James?
I love seeing Mickie James. I hate seeing Mickie James as La Luchadora, and this is how you bring her back. Seriously dropped the ball with this. And let's be completely honest. That match that Alexa Bliss was in with Becky Lynch was the drizzling shits. And I was so not interested in this that when the mask came off and it was Mickie James, I was like, well, that's kind of a buzzkill.
Well, here, not even the fact that, okay, they're in a cage match, yet she just walks right through the door. I thought the whole purpose of a cage match is to keep people from the outside coming in. If she, ran up to the cage and jumped off the top or something, okay. But she literally, the ref, I think, opened the door for her, and she went right in, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is a cage match. You just defeated the whole purpose of this whole match right now. And
Good job, referee. Great job.
But that was just ridiculous. But I'm happy to see her back. I don't know how she's going to do as a heel. Maybe it's just for a little bit to hang out with Bliss or get her over or do something, but I don't know what really is going to be in store for Mickie James. I'm sure she's definitely here to help the talent out.
You know how Mickie used to do things. I mean, she did the same thing to Trish. She would be all buddy with her until she turned on her just so she could get her shot at a title.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think she's good as a heel. I mean, the fans loved her as a face, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I think they loved her more as a crazy heel.
Yeah.
Because when she pulled that crazy, that's how she started, as Trish's number one fan and wanting to be her bestie and all that.
Yeah.
And it just made her batshit crazy to the point where once you got to WrestleMania, the fans were cheering for Mickie James, who's supposed to be the fucking heel. But again, that's Bizarro Land. But it stuck after the fact. So that's what made it cool.
Well, hang on. Let me tell you this then. How do you? I personally like that they actually have. Well, I guess you can call her a legend, right? They have somebody who's been on the women's division for years, who knows how it goes, to where it's almost like she can be a part of the new women's division as kind of like that big brother aspect, big sister, if you will, of the locker room, to where. She's been through it all. She can kind of guide these young up-and-comers, the women who haven't really been wrestling for years and years, but it's just another name, right, for them.
I think that she would have done better on Raw in that role, though, just because SmackDown already has Natty, and Natty's kind of like, a seasoned vet. It's not kind of. She is the seasoned vet, especially on that roster. I think there are some girls over on Raw that could probably use her guidance a little bit more. I mean, there's really not too many people for her to mentor over on SmackDown.
Well, what do you mean Raw? Because the only match I know is only Bayley and Charlotte every week. They don't know how to book any matches outside that championship. I don't even know what other women are there.
I can't really say that. You got Nia Jax and Sasha in the works.
That's true.
Yeah, and that roster is pretty thin, bud. I mean, I can't even really think of anybody else who's on Raw right now.
It's almost like they should have kept the women's division on one brand and then keep like
the cruiserweight on the other. And I said that.
Yeah, or something to that effect. But yeah, I mean, splitting them up, then you really have a less. I don't know. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't, I guess.
I mean, I guess it's, you know what, though? I mean, in that aspect, you got to look at the plus side of it. I mean, we can really only name 4 girls who are on the Raw roster, and they're all in matches.
That's right.
Whereas, same thing as SmackDown, the only person who I don't really see in any action right now, well, she's sort of kind of getting some action. I mean, she's doing that spoof with Chintz McMahon over there. What's her face? Carmella.
That's right. There's just so much happening this week. Guys, gals, everybody, head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Like us, subscribe to us, rate us, review us, iTunes, Stitcher. We're everywhere. Just head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. You'll find all of our links.
Promo of the week.
And I was going to take the high road and just say thank you and leave.
Don't take the high road, Paul.
But I have something to say to you. You see, I've waited a long time to say this to you, Eric Bischoff. But in case you don't notice, it's not Paul Heyman with his tail between his legs going to a WCW pay-per-view. Oh, wait a minute. Hide your wives, it's Edge!
Nobody here's married.
Now, Edge, I know nobody with a written promo has the balls to say this to you, but I have 2 words for you. Matt freaking Hardy! Forgot about you. Mr. Shoot Promo himself. Bounce checks. ECW went out of business. Hey, John, on a personal note from all of us just to you, since you want to shoot, cowboy, the only reason you were WWE champion for a year is because Triple H didn't want to work Tuesday. Right there, so the whole world can see us. This ain't WCW. This ain't Monday Night Raw. This ain't SmackDown. This ain't even WWE. This, my friends, is ECW.
All right, but coming up right now in the AWP studios, we have the new F'n Show Jerry Lynn.
Body shots!
All right, joining us today is a former World Heavyweight Champion, a man who has wrestled his way across the world from WWE, ECW, TNA, Ring of Honor, and into our living rooms over 25 years. To me, he will always be the new F'n Show. Please welcome Jerry Lynn. Jerry, how's it going?
It is, well, I can't complain. Things are going great. How about you?
Doing great. Like I said, you spent 25 years in the squared circle before retiring. How has retirement been for you, and how has your neck and back been since your surgery?
Well, since retiring, I thought life would slow down a little bit, but it seems like it's gotten busier. I got to get to have, more family time and stuff, and that keeps you really busy. Mm-hmm. So it's a surprise. And then, of course, you got the never-ending to-do list that the wife has for you that never ends. It seems to get longer all the time.
Definitely, yeah. How you been healing, though? Been good?
But my neck, the doc said, he said, I can't promise you it's going to get any better, but we can stop it from getting worse. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much where I'm at. I still have the numbness and tingling down my right arm and my hand and fingers. But at least now, if I get in a car accident or have a bad fall, I won't have get paralyzed, which is what he told me before I had the surgery. And a couple months ago, I did have a pretty good wipeout mountain biking. So and afterwards, I thought, after neck surgery, maybe I shouldn't be going off jumps anymore. And then the low back, I was having some problems with my lower back still. So it had gone out on me a few times. And so I got another MRI done. And he said, because my lowest disc is bulging, and then he said the two joints above it I have quite a bit of arthritis. He said the arthritis might be, mm-hmm. closing in the gaps around the nerves. So he suggested we try some epidurals. So I went through a series of 3 of them spinal injections, and nothing really changed. I still had this pain in my upper left glute and stuff. And, I was talking to my uncle, and he said he had both hips replaced. So I asked him, I said, what are your symptoms? Mm-hmm. And I had the exact same symptoms. So it finally dawned on me after all this, the injections and stuff, and it didn't change a thing. It's got to be my hip, which I figured when I was still wrestling someday, I figured I'd need a hip replacement because of, early on in the career, it's a lot of top rope leg drops.
Sure, yeah.
Then 10 years in, it becomes a second rope leg drop. And then another 10 years, that's a leg drop from the mat. Yep. And then, I had to pick a pile driver for a finisher. So, there's more landing on your butt, and then sit out power bombs. So who knows how many thousand times I landed on my butt.
Sure.
So I went, it was a year and a half ago, had x-rays on my hip, and they said I had a lot of arthritis. Well, I just went a few weeks ago and got an MRI on it. And my neurosurgeon, he prescribed it. So, and then he said, when they got the results, I have severe arthritis in my hip. So tomorrow morning, actually, I'm going to the orthopedic to go over the MRI with me and see where we go from here.
Well, I know all the fans out there are wishing you a nice recovery. I know it's going to be a few bumps and bruises along the way, but even going back a little bit too, there was a GoFundMe page raised by Brian Fritz. You got to respect the fans out there. I mean, they love you so much. They were able to help pay for the surgery, and even some of the extra money was donated to the charity, the Nashville Rescue Mission. What would you like to say to the fans that stand up to it? Because your line of business, you're not actually getting the insurance to cover all these medical needs, and the fans to come together and support you, help you through that. It's got to mean a lot to you, right?
Oh, well, it just, when I didn't at first want to do it, and Fritzy talked me into it because, when I told him, I said, all right, go ahead, we'll try it. Maybe we can get, hopefully $2,000-$3,000 to help get me to the, past all the deductibles and out-of-pocket costs and stuff. And then I was going to miss, at least a month's worth of work. And when the donations just started pouring in, it just brought tears to my eyes. I was just floored. I mean, there was fans from, literally all over the world. I couldn't believe it. Even countries I'd never been in. It was crazy. And then even, other wrestlers, promoters I used to work for. It was like I said, it brought tears to my eyes. I just couldn't believe it. It was just amazing. Sure. And, I have said thank you so many times. I can't say thank you enough. Words just can't.
Well, I think for the fans, exactly. I mean, from the fans, that's at least our thank you for all the years you've given us in the ring. It's a little, something we can help you through it. But do you have any advice to maybe young wrestlers who will go down the path that you have in wrestling as far as you did, on maybe what to look for or when not to be so tough and to listen to your body signs and to go see a doctor? Or is there anything maybe that you went through that maybe you can offer some advice to any wrestlers out there now?
I always used to say when someone says, you got any advice for someone who wants to be a pro wrestler? And I'd always say, go to college first. You have something to fall back on.
Sure.
Because the chances of making it in wrestling are not very great. And now I've actually told, I know one person, and I've told a couple people this. I say, don't overstay your welcome. And I don't mean as far as the fans, I mean as far as your body. I probably should have quit about 8 years before I did. But I think, it's hard to quit.
Sure,
it is hard to stop. Even when your body is telling you and you're starting to feel the aches and pains and you've already had a few surgeries, it's still hard to quit because it's, I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, especially early on in my career when I had to have the regular job supporting my wrestling habit. I'd always get a job through a temp agency and I'd tell whoever I was working for at the time straight up front, I may need to leave town for a week or two, and everyone was always cool with it. But so I've had a lot of different jobs over the years, but wrestling, for the most part, was the only job where I woke up and looked forward to going to work every day.
Nice, all right.
And, there's not a lot of people who can say that.
Sure, of course, yeah. Now, I also mentioned too, you spent 25 years in the ring. I know you're getting some the bumps and bruises are coming back right now, but what would you contribute to the longevity of your career, though? Because not a lot of guys can say they wrestled for that long in the ring.
Probably part of it is when I started. And I started late in life. I was 25 when I started. But I mean, like the era of wrestling then, because as the years have gone by, the bar has been raised higher and higher with how dangerous the moves are and what kind of impact, the impact has increased too. The moves have gotten more dangerous and higher impact. So when I first started, it wasn't as bad as far as, a lot of top rope stuff. And because you're coming down, you weren't coming down from such a big height. And then, as things progress now, especially the last probably 10 years, you got guys bumping on the apron, bumping on the floor, instead of in the sweet part of the ring,
Yep.
So the business has just gotten progressively more and more dangerous, and the more higher impact moves does a lot more damage to your body.
Sure.
Even though whenever I do a seminar, I tell the guys, I say, every time you hit that mat, even if it's what we consider a small bump, like taking a tackle or a clothesline or something, every time you hit that mat, you're doing a little bit of irreversible damage to your body. And it just slowly builds up over time. And one thing I didn't realize till it was too late was the older you get too, the more damage every bump does to your body. So it was, it's a learning experience, but, even, I don't know, I guess early on in my career, you never even think about quitting. And then, later on in the years, maybe, I don't know, there was a time where I thought, I'm not going to quit till my body says, and sure enough, that's what I did, which was kind of foolish because there's a lot of things. I've always been a very active person, and there's a lot of things I can't do now.
Sure.
Like water skiing or snow skiing or, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dangerous, your most notable time in wrestling for me was in ECW. I know it's a place, too, where you said you never thought you would end up going, but you did anyway. Can you tell us your first impression of ECW and what you thought of it before you even went there?
When I wrestled for WCW, I lived in Atlanta, and I'd get together with my buddy. I think it was like on at 2 o'clock in the morning on some obscure cable channel, and we'd watch ECW. And then, you had these guys would be brawling out in the ring, and the fans would be just handing over the rail them weapons, like frying pans and microwave ovens and, Super Nintendos and anything you can think of. And they're just clocking each other over the head with frying pans and stuff. And then you had Balls Mahoney and Sandman standing there and trading chair shots, and those chairs were just about folded in half. It was crazy, and I even said to my buddy, I said, that's one company I will never work for. And then when I was done with WCW, I had a tryout match with WWF against Taka Michinoku, and when that aired, I think that Paulie realized I wasn't under contract anymore, so we had Chris Candido call me up. And Chris calls me up and says, yeah, Paulie wants to know if you'd like to do a couple shots for ECW. And I said, and I was worried that I wouldn't have any work after just getting released. So I told him, okay. I said, here's how much I want. And one more thing. I said, I don't want some idiot hitting me in the head with a frying pan. And he said, no. We got our brawlers and we got our wrestlers. So, but, I realized that wrestling was changed, obviously was changing. And if I wanted to survive in the business, I had to be willing to change a little bit with the business also.
Sure.
So I couldn't tell you how many times I got hit in the head with that kendo stick and went through tables and had RVD kick a chair through my skull. And so, but like I said, things change, and if you want to survive, you got to be willing to change with it.
Sure. Now, speaking of RVD, one of your greatest rivals was RVD. You guys would give pay-per-view quality matches everywhere you worked. What was it about the chemistry with you two that just made you want to work harder? Is there anything that drove you guys to just give those great matches everywhere you went?
Boy, I think it was just we were challenging ourselves, and at the same time, I think we were making it fun for ourselves, and it was a real challenge because we were trying to give the people something they hadn't seen before, because we were two good guys, and most of the time, years ago, and a lot of times people never wanted to see two good guys wrestle each other. They just want to see a good guy and a bad guy, Mm-hmm. And if you had two good guys out there, a lot of people considered it boring. So I guess we were just trying to make it exciting and fun. And we played rough. It seemed like just about every match, either Rob or I or both of us would be popped open. So it was fun, but it was rough at the same time. And AJ Styles, he described it very well after he wrestled with Rob. He said, when Rob hits you with something, it's like being hit by a Buick, because Rob is really solid. Uh-huh. He's built.
Yep. You're the best of both worlds, as you wrestled as a cruiserweight, but you also wrestled as a heavyweight. Not a lot of guys can do that or say they did that. To you, did it matter one way or the other, or did it bother you of not being always labeled as a heavyweight and just a cruiserweight sometimes? Or you did a bunch of each, right?
Well, I would always, I guess, what would get frustrating at times is I felt like I dug myself into the spot where when a lot of different promoters would book me and stuff, they wanted to see a half-hour X Division extravaganza,
Yeah.
And, when you're doing those type matches, you're taking a lot of bumps, and it takes its toll on you. Or else it would kind of bother me when people would just want you to go out there and just do a train wreck match. Well, then I feel like I'm taking bumps for nothing, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a match that involves a lot of people. Well, not really a lot of people, because then you don't have to do as much because everyone takes their turns doing stuff. But when they ask for a match where they just want a nonstop train wreck, then you can't really go out there and tell a story and have every bump mean something, you know. And that's what I mean by taking bumps for nothing. And I feel like I'm doing damage to my body for nothing then.
Sure, yeah.
But so it would get frustrating at times, because I still want to go out there and take the people and give them that emotional roller coaster ride throughout the match. And there's a lot of times where they didn't want you to do that. And
sure.
to me, it didn't make sense.
Yep. Now,
but, you know, it didn't matter who I was wrestling, whether it was another X Division guy or a heavyweight guy or whatever. I always still tried to tell a story and have the match actually make sense, because we're not actually supposed to be out there running around like chickens with their heads cut off and just doing moves for the sake of doing moves. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Now, WWE has brought back the cruiserweights with their new division and their show 205 Live. Do you think these guys will ever ever have the chance to break out of that division and be seen as a possible top mid-card guy, or if not a main eventer? Or do you think, with that now in place, you think all those kind of guys with those body frames, those body weight, will just forever be the cruiserweights?
Well, you never know. You can never say never, because when you even look at the main roster now, there's a lot of smaller guys on the main roster now than there ever used to be 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, because 20 years ago, it was the land of the giants for the most part. So, and look at Mysterio had a good run there. And, so you never can say never.
Sure.
You never know what's going to happen. There's so many guys now that are the top stars there in WWE that I wrestled 15 years ago on the indies. So you never know where you're going to end up.
Sure. Now, there's a lot of wrestling happening each week today. Does anybody out there today remind you of a young Jerry Lynn, or is there anybody on your radar that you enjoy watching?
I don't know if I'd call them a young Jerry Lynn. They're all so much better than me. There's guys that really, catch my eye and stuff. And like I said years ago when I had I think it was right around close to when I was getting ready to retire, that Mike Bennett, he always really stood out to me, because I watched him in Ring of Honor just walking to the ring and not saying a word, just his look on his face and his mannerisms, and he had the crowd hating his guts just doing that. And I just thought, wow, he gets it. And Adam Cole, and Adam Cole, just during the match, he would tell so much of the story with just the expressions on his face and stuff. So, I mean, there's quite a few guys out there that are, and that Neville, he's amazing. Just,
definitely
can do such amazing things. I mean, there's so much good talent out there.
We also have a few messages from fans out there. Vladimir Joseph from Connecticut, he says, who thought of the Mr. JL gimmick, and what was the purpose, he was asking.
I came up with the gimmick, not the name. And at the time, I had already been going to Japan quite a few years for this lucha company over there and for Michinoku. And, got to see a lot of cool mask gimmicks. And I think it was about, I'm trying to think, 7 years in or something like that. I thought, after going over there so much, I thought, well, no one's doing a mask gimmick in the States. So, and at the time, the Power Rangers were big. And I had talked to Brad Ringens, the guy who trained me. He had asked me to come out to his camp and help train some of the guys. And I asked him, I said, Brad, it's been 7.5 years. I said, what do I got to do to get a break. And he said, well, the business has changed. It's all TV now. He says, you got to come up with something that stands out and grabs people's attention and keeps them from changing the channel. And so that's what turned the light bulb on with the mask gimmick. Uh-huh. And at the time, I had been working at a screen printing shop, and so I got one of the guys in the art department to help me design the outfit. And I told him I wanted something that was sort of like Power Rangers, but not exactly something alien-like. And he came up with that design. And when I showed Brad, he took pictures and video of me rolling around the outfit and stuff and sent it to the office in WCW, and they said that's exactly what they've been looking for. So I went down there, and they asked me, what do you want to be called? And I'm throwing out some names like the Phantasm or the Cyber Knight or something,
Sure.
And they said, well, we don't want to just, and this was all at the last minute. This was like a half hour before the show started. And they said, well, we don't want to just slap a name on you without researching any copyright infringements. And they said, oh, what the heck? Call him Mr. JL. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. And I invested over $1,200 into getting the outfit made. And I'm like, you gave me that name? And I was like,
oh, man. We have another question, too, from Randy Hammond, and it's almost a two-part question because I have the second part I want to ask for it. So he's saying, what do you remember about your match with RVD at Hardcore Heaven 1999 in Poughkeepsie, New York? Now, that's our hometown in Poughkeepsie. But my part to this question would be, do you remember you fell off the top rope in the match, and I think you bashed your head on the cement floor. Did that change any of the plans for the match, or do you even remember the whole match from that moment? Because from my point of view, being there live, it looks like you really hit your head pretty bad on that floor.
I did, and people say something like, how did you continue the match after being knocked out? I said, I wasn't knocked out. I said, I wish I was, so I wouldn't have felt the pain because it hurt bad. It felt like my head was in two chunks.
Oh.
But, I was just going to, roll off the top rope to the apron and to the floor, and my foot got caught on the middle rope, and I missed the apron and went face first to the floor, and that was actually the third time that month I broke my nose, and then had to go to the emergency room and get my head stitched shut after the match, after the show, and but it hurt a lot, and I'm laying there, and the ref comes over and says, "You okay?" And I said, "No, I'm effed up," and then Rob comes over and he stomps on my head, and I'm just like, "Leave me alone!" And then the ref comes over again. I think at first I told him, I said, just tell him to roll me in the ring and pin me.
Yeah.
And I think Rob stalled a little longer, and I think he even stomped on my head again. And I was just like, please stop. Anyway, by the time he got me up on the apron, the pain had subsided a little. So I said, screw it, let's go, let's keep going. Wow. And so it didn't really change anything in the match.
Sure, yeah.
So,
wow.
But I just remember after the match, I'm walking back through the curtain, and Paulie's there, and he says, that was the greatest match I've ever seen. And I said, it sucked. I hated it. And I was knocked pretty loopy, and Nova, he said he took me outside and said, let's get some fresh air. And it helped. I needed some air.
Sure, yeah.
But it was a rough month, though. It was, having my nose broke 3 times in 1 month. So.
Sure. And now last question, too, from Russell Jaff. He's asking, your memories or any stories that stand out to you from your Ring of Honor run towards the end with the belt. Was it designed to be a direct parallel to the wrestler in the planning or design?
I think that's what they were going for, was, but I think they waited too long because, the movie had already been out for a while, I think. Mm-hmm. But having the run there was hard because, and I got a lot of flack because, Ring of Honor's known for being for younger guys, so I was pretty old for being there. So there was a lot of pressure, but to do well, but the pressure was all from myself I've always been my own worst critic.
Sure, yeah.
And so I always put a lot of pressure on me, and I knew, and I was, 46, 47, 46 when I was there. And you got all these guys who are in their, early 20s, and I've got to try and keep up with these guys, and it wasn't easy. So I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still proud of what I did, because there were certain times where during the match, especially when I had the belt, during the match on certain shows, the people actually were biting and thinking I was going to lose the belt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to get them to do on a house show, or what they would consider a B show.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So there was some, I was proud of what I did there, even though I knew I was up in my years and I couldn't go like I used to. But I did my best for at the time with what was left in my body and what was left in the gas tank. And but it was hard.
Sure. Jerry, I could talk to you all day if I could, but, the reason why you're here, January 27th from 4 to 5:30 p.m., you'll be having a seminar before Fight for the Mind 2 in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, at the National Guard Armory. What can the students attending expect from a Jerry Lynn seminar?
Well, there's so much to cover, and I really don't have a set planned routine what I do, because there's so much. It's just you wouldn't believe how much there is to cover.
Sure.
And so there'll probably be things I won't even remember to cover, but I will do my best to show them things that will take them from looking indie-rific to a professional. And there's so many little. Even the smallest. There's such small, minute details that will make all the difference in the world, besides other things. But, I will I always try and help them, with psychology and there's so much. There is so much.
Sure,
and
yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, but I will try and squeeze as much in as we can.
Definitely, and
also
to be able to train with one of the greats, that's the price, well worth the price. But you were saying?
Well, you never stop learning. I wish I was still wrestling, because I feel like I still only know a drop in the bucket. And that was the one thing I loved about wrestling, is you never stop learning. You're constantly learning every time you get in that ring. And I was also going to mention that Buffalo Wild Wings is sponsoring the show by Stones River Mall. And from open to close, if you go there and mention Best of the Best Wrestling, they will donate to the charity, which is the Alzheimer's Association. 10% of your bill will go to the Alzheimer's Association.
That's great, yeah.
And there also is going to be a meeting of, I think throughout the day, it's going to be like an all-day deal. There's going to be different times throughout the day, different wrestlers there doing meet and greets at Buffalo Wild Wings. And I think 3:30 to 5, it's going to be Tommy Dreamer and Rebel from TNA. And then after all that, there will be a VIP meet and greet at the Armory from 5:45 to 6:45, and then at 6:45 they'll open the doors for everyone. And the show starts at 7:30. And also the show will be available on iPay-per-view on Fight TV the following day, Saturday the 28th. So if you can't make it, you can check it out on iPay-per-view.
Definitely. I also want to mention, too, for all the fans out there listening, too, and for anybody that wants to go to the seminar with Jerry Lynn, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to go, but the best in class will be in a match during the Fight for the Mind 2 event. So another reason to show up for the seminar, guys, if you're listening out there. And just to reserve your spot now, if you head out over to wrestling.com/FFTM, you can get more information on that. That's IYFwrestling.com/FFTM. So just another reason to attend the seminar, right? The best in the class will actually be on the show.
Yeah. Yep, they always do that to me. They make me the bad cop. So I got to pick one and say, the rest of you suck. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just more pressure.
That's right.
I'm trying. Oh, also, there's a special referee. The MTSU head football coach, Rick Stockstill, is going to be special referee for the match between Chase Stevens and Chris Michaels. So I'm trying to think if there's any other goodies. There's so much going on that day, but you got Tommy Dreamer, Rebel, Chase Stevens, one half of the Naturals from TNA. You got Dr. Tom Pritchard's going to be there. Tracy Smothers, which is, every locker room needs Tracy. and I can't, I'm Jones and I hear Tracy say, everybody dies.
Well, Jerry, I mean, it's been a blast. I really appreciate your time tonight. Are you into the social media universe at all? Can fans keep up with you anywhere?
I'm slowly trying to get into it, but I'm not fully into it yet.
Sure.
So,
right. Well, to stay tuned for everybody, right?
Yes, but I was going to plug, when I had my neck surgery, a couple fans designed T-shirts for me, and then actually Wolfie D from PG-13. He's a great artist and does great stuff, and he designed a T-shirt for me. So there's a few T-shirts at Pro Wrestling Tees you can check out. And trying to think what else there is going on. Not really much right now. I haven't really been pursuing much, but I'm gonna try and start getting out there a little more.
Sure. Well, if you're ever up in the Northeast, I know the fans up here would love to see you. And Jerry, once again, I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Anytime. We'll do it again sometime.
Today's show is brought to you by...
This is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to another wrestling podcast in association with Celeb VM. Order a personal video message from me and many other wrestlers and celebrities now. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Get a personal video message for yourself or as a gift for someone else. For personal connections, shout-outs, birthdays, proposals, weddings, and much more. Enter your details about yourself so the celebrity can record a personal video message especially for you, including details such as your name, age, birthday, hobbies, or whatever else you include. As soon as the video has been recorded, you'll get an email with your link so you can share it on social media or download and keep it. Celebrities record videos as and when they can, usually within 2 weeks. But if you want a video for a specific date and it does not look like it will arrive in time, you can cancel it and get an instant refund at the click of a button. There are hundreds of celebrities to choose from and many more joining every day. Search by category or genre. Buy a gift voucher, get updates and offers, and encourage your favorite celebrities to join so they can connect with fans in a fun and unique way. Raise money for their charities and much more. So order your video now for yourself or for someone else.
Celebrity video messages and another wrestling podcast team up. Be sure to head on over to celebvm.com/AWP.
Credo, my God. That is an awesome interview. Thank you, Jerry, for joining us on another wrestling podcast. We hope to have you on again soon. Credo, kudos to you, my friend.
Yeah, man. Great talking to Jerry. It made me reminisce a lot more about ECW. That's where we predominantly saw him, even though he's been in pretty much everywhere from WWE, TNA, and beyond. But kudos.
Ring of Honor, shit, yeah.
Yeah, man, everywhere. But let's talk about ECW. And I'm not saying, hey, let's do the whole history, because Lord knows WWE finds a way to come out with a new ECW special every year for somehow. I don't know. It's like the uncovered best of that's never been released special of ECW, but whatever it is. Let's talk about our own personal discoveries of ECW, if you will. I remember in high school, just people rumbling about it. Have you seen this? Have you watched it? It's on at like 2 a.m. or whatever. And back in this day, it's not like you could set your DVR. I had to program my VCR to record it.
Oh my God, VCR!
I forget what channel it was on, but it was on whatever channel at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or something to that effect. It was on really late.
I want to say it might have even been. Could it have been MSG?
I don't know.
I don't think
remember.
It was.
Yeah, but
I don't remember either. But I tell you what. I remember. Do you know how I got introduced to ECW?
What's that?
Poison Ivy.
Poison Ivy.
Yes, I had to go to the pharmacy over in Hopewell, and I mean I had bad poison ivy, and I picked up a prescription, and it was the only place that I knew of that had wrestling magazines outside of WWE magazine. So, I mean, I'm talking like Pro Wrestling Illustrated and all those other ones, right?
Yeah.
And, I picked a shitload of them up because it was very rare for me to be over there. And I'm sitting there reading about the franchise Shane Douglas basically throwing the NWA belt on the ground and basically calling it a piece of shit. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And, ever since then, again, it's what I would hear in high school. I mean, it just kept growing from there.
Yeah, man, it was that thing because like I had to tape it, had to see what was going on. I even watched it a few nights, trying to stay up late enough to watch it, and it was like, all right, this is different, because we're so at this point we're so used to WWE and WCW kind of, but WWE is still in that campy phase. It wasn't really full blown Attitude Era, because without ECW they really didn't get too much into the Attitude Era without them. So it was kind of, I think there was still Duke the Dumpster Drosy and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, they were still doing all that gimmicky shit.
So it was like we were used to that stuff, right? And then when we saw this, it was like, in your head, we know what wrestling is, we know how it's done. But when you watch this, man, it was like, wow, they're really wrestling. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I really thought at one point that it was like UFC with weapons.
Exactly, man. And that's the thing is like, because you got to go back as a kid, because if you're watching now, of course you know how things are done. But I mean, as a young Mark growing up, you're watching this, you're like, holy crap, this is totally better than WWE. I mean, they're really fighting, and that's as much as you could say. Really, it was just the whole look of it. The reality of it. There were at times, but there was no like silly characters like a Duke the Dumpster or whatever. There were a lot of these characters were just real guys using rock and roll music that we knew as their entrance music, and it was, that was like, wow, this is it, man. It was like you're coming out of that phase of the campiness of pro wrestling to where you're almost questioning yourself, should I still watch it? And then you find this, and you're like, of course I'm going to still watch it. Look at this show. It was totally beating out anything WWE and WCW was doing at that time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I really enjoyed about it is they did such a great job making characters that weren't gimmicky and cheesy. Classic example is Raven.
Yep.
I mean, you talk about somebody who just could cut a promo, was great in the ring, had amazing ring psychology, and just knew how to get a crowd to hate him. And the Sandman, there you go. That was his fucking...
He's drinking beer. You never saw that anywhere in wrestling,
Smoking a cigarette to the ring. I mean, the only other person I ever saw doing that was, God, I think it was the Big Show when he was still in WCW. Just walking to the ring, smoking a cigarette. And you have to find that video because it's so funny. That giant hand, that cigarette looks like a fucking toothpick in his hand. It's hilarious.
Oh, man. It was just, like you said, the characters, too. Even like Sabu. All I had to see was the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal. And all he did was come out and point to the ceiling. And you're like, who is this guy? And then when he starts wrestling, you're like, holy shit, this is fucking awesome. Like, it was just totally different characters, the way they were approaching everybody. And it was awesome. And we were so lucky to live. We're so lucky to live in the area that we do, Cooter, because Poughkeepsie, man, without the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, they did a lot of classic WWE shows there back in the day. But ECW was so smart and realized that it was such a perfect building to do tapings, especially for them, to where, of course, they can't go to like Madison Square Garden or some really, really big arena, but they could go to this arena, the Civic Center. And if you've never been there, if you're listening from all over the world, just look up the Mid-Hudson Civic Center and pro wrestling, and you'll see the history that has happened there. And just for them to go there and tape it, it was like, for us, man, it was like 10 minutes up the road. We can go see, pay-per-views for ECW or house shows or live shows or whatever. And it was awesome. I mean, that's I think what made it even more better is when we found out that it was coming to our backyard and actually doing TV tapings. Because at this point, too, I think WWE even stopped doing tapings at the arena. They did some in the early 90s, but now this is like, 96, towards the end of the 90s, 97, 98, whatever. And now they're taping again there. And it was like, wow, it was such a drought for a few years that WWE
because they were they were using that for the first couple of Raws even. And that was like, I want to say, was that 91 or 92 where they started doing Raw? I don't even remember.
Even though it was only a few years later, it seemed like it was like decades later.
Yeah, man.
Just the
it
way
was like
it happened.
We had this drought. I mean, we would be lucky if we got a house show or two a year when we were used to them being around at least like once a month.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when ECW came to town, it was just all hands on deck. Looks like we're back in business because something was always better than nothing, and this was completely different than what we were used to. And quite frankly, I mean, it made me want to see more. I mean, God, the moment that sticks in my mind, and it will forever stick in my mind, is Rob Van Dam and Jerry Lynn.
That's right, man, and that's one of the greatest matches probably. Their whole rivalry through the years happened right up here in our backyard. It was it Hardcore Heaven, right?
I think so. I'm pretty sure that was it, man. I mean, I couldn't even tell you anything else that was on that card, Greedo. That's sad because I bet you if I was to search that card and try to find that pay-per-view, I bet you I'd be like, oh my God, like this was probably an amazing show, but that one just stole it.
Yeah, man, and it's just from everybody listening out there, I'd love to hear your stories too. So please, once again, anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. You'll find all the links. Tweet us, Facebook us, whatever. I want to hear what you guys thought about ECW too, because they really did break that mold and made it real, and it definitely made WWE and WCW step their game up even more. Because it was like crap. Now that the cat's out of the bag, if you will, that people want to see this kind of hardcore wrestling, it even graduated to the WWE, eventually bringing in their own hardcore championship. WCW had their own hardcore championship too, and it was like for the soul.
You gotta remember, man, that was because they brought ECW on Raw.
Oh yeah, and I'm just saying, like that, all those things would have never existed without ECW, and it's almost a shame that, they didn't really have a big financial backer at that time, to where I wonder if almost we could take that era, put it to this day and age, and see like if that happened now, if somebody would really stepped up and like really gave them a lot more money to give them more competition. Because could you imagine an ECW at that time who was having the money like Ted Turner or Vince McMahon, like as a third company? You know what I mean? Like
never happened.
I know.
Never happened in this day. No, in this day and age.
Yeah.
I would. That's one of the things where it was the perfect time. And it was only special once. I mean, we live in a world now where everything is politically correct. You can't say this, you can't do that. You're forced to have opinions on certain things, and God forbid you just disagree with it. I mean, the stuff that they used to do would not fly today.
Yeah. It's just, oh man, I really wish somebody would count, because like I think at that time too, nobody really wanted to back wrestling companies to where they're like, yeah, I feel almost today like you would almost get like a Mark Cuban or something, be like, yeah, let's do it, like I'm just wishfully thinking though, to where if somebody really gave them money back then, what would have really happened? But it's just interesting. It's just amazing because they really were the top three. It was WWE, WCW, and ECW. That was the game in town, and they really pushed everybody else to their limits. And we have to be so happy for that.
Give me a top three and your favorite, and then your favorite tag team from ECW.
Top three, definitely Rob Van Dam. Definitely always going to be in my top. Sabu right there with him, just because
these are good ones, yeah.
It's crazy. And then I also have to say Chris Candido is one of my favorites in ECW, just because of the whole triple threat aspect. But you can even tag in Bam Bam Bigelow in there. But definitely, I love Chris Candido, RVD, and Sabu. And tag team, one of the tag teams that I always loved was it the Eliminators? It was.
Yes, I was gonna say the Eliminators with Cronus and Saturn. That was an incredible tag team, man.
Yeah, those were just my standouts. But what are you thinking of? Any similar? Or?
I mean, I'm gonna pick some different guys just because. I mean, Raven has got to go on that list.
That's right. Yep.
I have to say New Jack because.
Oh, of course.
I mean, he's just a barbaric animal in a good way.
Who didn't love seeing those weapons come out? I mean, that was like,
yeah. I mean,
you wanted to see what he would use next.
You knew you were going to see some shit, man. I got to say, Tommy Dreamer, as a performer in the ring, he he paid his dues with that ECW crowd who really did not like him at first.
Yeah, his whole gimmick too to me was like he was like the normal guy. He was like the guy, like the fan on the outside who came in and was actually a wrestler and was kicking ass, and that was like I think better than just having Sabu or being Raven, or he was just like the normal regular guy who came in.
And then once that Raven fucking rivalry hit his career, man, and it just totally changed him, and that crowd really started to respect him. And listen, there's no more of a stand-up guy in the wrestling business than Tommy Dreamer. His career is just amazing. You can't hate on him.
Yeah, man. What about a tag team?
Ooh, damn. I was going to say the Gangsters because of New Jack. So let me put the Gangsters as my tag team. I got Raven. I got Tommy Dreamer. And let's not forget about the Sandman.
Definitely, man. Great picks. I love it. Just a little reminiscing about ECW and our take on it, especially.
Holy fuck! How did we forget about the franchise Shane Douglas? Either of us. He's not either of our top threes.
I was even thinking about the Dudley Boys for a tag team too, and I just didn't realize till later on. There's a lot of good people that came out of there.
What can I say? We should have done a top 5.
But it's great to hear because especially it was right in our backyard. While a lot of you guys out there and girls, whoever's listening, it was probably not even close to where you'd ever see it. So we're once again, we're lucky. We're lucky to live where we live, right?
Yes, we are.
All right, well, each and every week, that's what we're going to be doing here on another wrestling podcast.
And hopefully our host doesn't get any more phone calls at 3:45 in the morning from Nigeria.
Oh, my God.